All right, my buddy Bruce is in the hot seat today. Mr. Bruce Weinstein. How are you, sir?
Great. Thank you. Excited to be here.
You've been in and around the business for 30 years.
Almost 35.
Almost 35, almost equal to my age. So you know far more than I do. So take it easy on me today, okay? Because I know you could talk over my head in a hurry, right? Because one of the things I've learned about you is you're extremely impressive. You know products crazy well. And your experience comes from a lot of facets, right? And a lot of experience in different products and financial advising and insurance and all this stuff. Have you always been like this product guru all along?
Yeah, I think I started in the brokerage industry in 1986. Wow. And I was doing consulting, planning conversations back then versus just trying to sell. Everybody was given a pitch, a Merrill Lynch pitch, and you had to just try and make that sale. And I was always trying to probe and uncover if it was a mom answering the phone, a woman answering the phone during the day. You kind of figured it was a mom staying home. You would shift to college planning. You know, if it was, you're calling the senior communities, we always were talking municipal bonds back then. So, but I always tried to consult. And it was way ahead of its time. And then in the 90s, the financial planning approach came about. And so I was probably about 12 years ahead of the curve in regards to just being consultative, which is the topic of my breakout session. If I could throw that in, it's, are you selling or are you solving? Yeah.
And the way that came about is I'm excited for your breakout session, 8% Nation, by the way. It's going to be unbelievable. You guys have to go to this breakout. Trust me. Because you earned $400,000 on one case, by the way. Case. I want to throw that out there because that is freaking legendary, Bruce.
Thank you.
I can't say it, and I don't know two people that can ever say something like that. That is nuts. I also just heard you talk about planning. I'm wondering, okay, should we call it planning versus pitching? Because if you're not planning, you're pitching, right? Or a transaction versus transformation. Or consulting versus just cranking out policies. So there's my little comparisons there as I'm thinking, talking to you. Yeah. How did you earn 400? How did you earn 400 grand on one single case?
I don't want to give all the secrets away, then nobody will come to the breakout session, right? But it was a high level estate planning case. I was doing retirement planning seminars, and this couple came, and they had a $5 million stock portfolio that had a cost basis of $8,000.
Okay. So
and the
explain cost basis for us that have no clue what that means.
Thank you. So basically the stock was to them was an $8,000 acquisition price and the street value was $5 million. So liquidating, transferring the stock, closing the stock out would trigger a capital gain, a taxable event of literally $5 million. And at that particular year, capital gains tax was 28%. So nobody before us ever initiated the conversation to sell the stock because they're going to give up $1.4 million in capital gain tax.
Yeah.
So the portfolio manager was just keeping the stock and collecting a dividend. Without giving away too much of the details, this stock became Wachovia stock, which had a 5% dividend. So the client was living on that dividend. And as you know, with the financial crisis, Wachovia stock plummeted 98%, eliminated the dividend. And if they had not met me and done this work that I had done pre-financial crisis, their $5 million would have been worth about $100,000.
Ooh.
So it is a lot of wins of what transpired and why you diversify and why the strategy we did, which used an annuity, used an ILIT trust. So it was a big life insurance case. It was a big annuity case. And having the toolbox to know and understand the techniques in estate planning. Yeah. Not many people are familiar with what's called a charitable remainder trust, which is what we used. And there was a lot of bells and whistles. And I would say less than 1/10% of financial advisors out there even know the terminology, let alone the strategy. So it was a big win. It was a big win.
Only 50% of the people on this call. Okay? And it's not on this side. In case you're wondering. So selling versus solving. I love that. You talked about a toolbox. How important is it for a rep to have a toolbox of like an arsenal,
Yeah. Well, I came to Nate's event, right? SWAT, and you, Pete, Brad Hannon, everybody was kind of on a topic, right? Health, life, Medicare, specific tools in the toolbox. And why I knocked on the door to see about speaking at your event was to bring a bigger array of tools, right? There's more to the problem solving. The backstory I'll give you is a buddy of mine lost his job and was going to get into, he tells me, long-term care sales. And he knows nothing about insurance. He certainly knows nothing about long-term care. And I said, let me ask you something. I said, if you're in a hardware store and you're only selling screwdrivers and the guy comes in and wants to buy a hammer, are you going to tell him just to use the hammer, use the screwdriver as a hammer, or are you going to be able to find him a hammer? So if you're only selling long-term care and they need final expense, they need an estate plan, they need health insurance, they need Medicare, you're letting that person walk out the door. That's so right. For me, as a financial advisor capacity over the years, my toolbox was constantly being added on to this child remainder trust. I went to a workshop in Indianapolis in the 1990s to learn about and study and get certified on this estate planning technique. So for me, it was always a matter of being as well-rounded and conversational with anybody in any circumstance. I won a $5 million case from a Merrill Lynch competitor as I sat down with the prospect who came to I did retirement planning seminars for many years. And as the person was pulling stuff out, I was telling him what he had. He's like, how do you know about that? How do you know about that? And I said to him jokingly, I said, I'm not here to crack walnuts, man. I know my stuff. Like, let's get serious. Like, do you want to work at the professional? But he was like dumbfounded, like why or how I knew about all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm a professional. So
I want to add to that. Real quick, because I love that you just said that. Like, that is so key for you guys taking notes. I hope you're taking notes, listening and watching this as after we put this out, is a pro versus an amateur. Like a lot of people in our business are amateurs. That's why they fail. They never become part of the 8%. They never become Bruce freaking Weinstein because they're amateurs instead of being a consummate professional and knowing their stuff and knowing their game. How important is it to seek out being a true professional and going at this thing like it's a real career versus just a side job?
Well, I think for a new person, if you're going to start somewhere, you can't know everything immediately.
That's right.
Right. So you definitely need to become an expertise in one particular area first and foremost.
Yeah.
Again, side story, my son was interning with me one summer, and I had him sit in on client interviews, post-seminar, coming in now to uncover their situations, their pain. And to the better part of a 3-hour conversation, he looked at me as like, I can never get into the business. I said, why? He goes, you talked for 3 hours. He says, you had so much wealth of knowledge and information that the conversation just kept going and going and going, and probably too overkill, obviously, on my part. I'm a talker. But to the point of the client and the situation, there was a lot to uncover and a lot to share with them. And so it was intimidating to him as somebody considering getting in the business, because how am I going to learn all that? And I said to him, it took me 30 years. Like, it took me 25 years to know all that. I didn't know that 1986 when I started at Merrill Lynch. It took decades. So yes, I think anybody who wants to get into the business with what's out there today, whether it's, health, Medicare, final expense, life products, is just dive into something, start to get to critical mass, make a living, see that you're having success, and then work on personal growth and expansion to say, now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to get into, if I'm in health, I got to get to Medicare. I don't want to lose those clients to Cody because they're going to go, to the gurus for Medicare. I want to be able to transition that client. Right. So what do I need to do to put myself in that position and educate myself? So, for us, it was just a constant evolution for our practice is just be, we kind of say the line, all things insurance. So it doesn't matter. We don't say no to anything. We have strategic partners.
P&C.
We're not writing P&C. We're licensing P&C, but part of my, with Dave and Joe Campert and others in the PNC
Yeah.
space, is to be strategic partners. Because as I'm networking and having clients, and they might be in Austin or Dallas or Kansas City, and they say, "Can you help me with blank?" Because I'm the resource, I'm the quarterback, right? I'm the navigator of the ship.
Yeah.
I don't say no. I say, I've got a strategic partner. Let me bring them into the conversation.
That's
and
awesome.
I work that out with Joe or Dave or somebody to facilitate, be involved, and still be the lead dog on the relationship, because the clients came to me for that trust factor.
That's smart. And what do you sell the most of?
These days, probably I would say life is the life and annuities is the bigger ticket in that regard. Health and Medicare are smaller ticket stuff. It takes stacking and volume. But as I have evaluated, I'm thanks to you guys, you and Nate, working with Coach Burt and diving in deeper into my own, brain, but looking at my 80-20 and where my business is coming from and identifying those relationships, it's natural market. You can buy leads all you want.
Yes.
It's natural market. That's what's getting the better deals. I wrote over $8,000 of premium last week with one of my fraternity brothers who came knocking. What does Coach Burt say? Become a person of interest, have them come to you. So I'm doing the stuff that you and Landon and others are out there doing and promoting. I'm trying to follow the people who are having success on this side.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm doing the types of things and trying to execute. Nothing works perfect, but my inbound opportunities are coming from people saying, "Hey, can you help me with, I don't need health insurance, but can you help me with this?"
Right.
And that's a nice deal, $8,000 premium. So
yeah, that doesn't suck.
That doesn't hurt.
Are you going to share the secrets of how anyone can do this at the conference?
8% Nation.
8% Nation.
What is this 8% Nation you speak of?
Yeah, exactly. What is this 8% thing? Talk to me about what you're going to share there, because I love breakout sessions, because it gives people like you that have a ton of experience, ton of knowledge, super impressive people that make a killing, the chance to actually teach others how they can do the same thing.
You can't see my desk, but I have all my little blue note cards, thanks to Nate and the conference at SWAT. I've been jotting and writing, and again, taking that information and Coach Bird and putting down my, I'm an outline guy. I'm not a script person. My seminar, I would speak for 2 hours off of a 8 or 10 item outline, and I would just converse. I would just converse on my journey of this financial planning conversation and lead them through the steps in the process of what I did. And so I'm not big on repeating myself and being scripted. So it's very conversational. It's always tailored. So to your point of the breakout session, as I rack my brain on and try and find the talking points, I'm a person about so what. When I talk and interview with clients or prospects, or when I was a training manager teaching other advisors back in the day, I said, don't talk for the sake of talking. You're going to talk to Cody. What's the so what? Right? You're talking to an audience. What's the so what? Don't have diarrhea of the mouth and don't just keep blabbing, but have a so what? What's the point? And so I'm trying for your breakout session in your event, 8% Nation, everybody. Is that an 8? That's an 8.
That's an
8. 8% Nation. Are you selling or are you solving was the headline that I came up with, in the sense of what's separating you from your competition. I want to talk about overcoming adversity, the head trash. I mean, I got a lot of little note cards with a lot of different topics on there. Playing to win, being an octopus. All those types of subtopics that I'll bring into my so what's, and hopefully it resonates with those in the audience that can glean a couple of those takeaways.
Yeah. You know what? One of the things that's attracted me the most that you've talked about already is the retirement planning seminars. Like, I'm a big event guy. My dad is doing seminars. His team's doing seminars every week, like, Medicare. How impactful were those retirement planning seminars back in the day?
I was literally the first. I'm from Central New Jersey, right? The New Brunswick, Rutgers, Princeton area.
Nice.
50 years, and I got paroled. I went to Florida, and I made the pilgrimage
There you go.
down south. But around 1997, I started these seminars, and it was a dinner seminar at a local steakhouse, a local restaurant. And I kind of had a strategy, and I had a discipline that I executed. It was a wedding style invitation, and my topic was your right to financial dignity. And I talk about the journey, life's journey, and getting to the finish line called retirement, and having enough assets and resources that retirement is optional and affordable. Okay. And again, I had a lot of colleagues that I started with in the business, and they were not doing this. They were still stockbrokers, and I was a financial planner. I was a financial advisor. I did the insurance side. I did the investment side. My colleagues from Merrill Lynch were strictly doing investments. They didn't know from the insurance side of things and planning, not yet anyway. And so, it takes money to make money, but I was investing. And again, this is 20 plus years ago, right? So between 25 and $50 a head, and it was a couples only event. I tried to keep the singles out, and, I had my language, first time attendees only, and I kept a database, ACT for Windows, if people remember what ACT was.
Yeah.
And so if Cody, I don't know your wife's name, but if Cody and Mrs. Atkins, what's her name?
Lauren.
If Cody and Lauren are signing up for my seminar, I'm now cross-checking my database. And I say, Cody, listen, I see you attended last November. I appreciate that you signed up, but it's for first-time attendees. It says so on the invitation, right? Couples only, first-time attendees. I said, however, I'd love to take you out to dinner. We'll talk privately. We'll follow up. You obviously didn't take me up on the consultation last time, but you wanted to come to the dinner again. It's the same exact presentation. Why don't we get together? My treat. I'll take you and Lauren out dinner again, and we'll have a private conversation. So that was my way around the plate lickers to keep the repeat offenders from coming.
Repeat offenders.
So that's what they were. So let's see, 1997 till about 2010, right? So what is that, like 13 plus years? Ask me how many people took me up on that second free dinner. The answer is none. They're plate lickers. They're plate lickers.
Insane.
But you need a system, right? If you're paying 25, $50 a head, $100 a couple, marketing, mailer, 10,000 piece mailers, $5,000 at the restaurant, you put the events, right? You need ROI. And so for me, it was just whittling down and letting people self-select of coming in the door and coming to see me. And again, my numbers, I was getting about a 75% conversion of a lead at the end of the dinner, because the story and the conversation resonated. And the ask was just to keep the conversation going. There's nothing to sell, only problems to solve. So what can we do to solve those issues? If I have 5 hotbed topics, long-term care, retirement, investment rate of returns, pension maximization, if you have a pension, whatever those topics were, something I spoke about had to hit at least on one level, maybe 2, maybe 5, but nobody walked out of there saying, I don't have those issues. Well, you're lying then. I mean, you're here for a steak. That's okay. Ruth Chris makes good steaks, and have a good night, and goodbye. Cost of acquisition.
Is that where you did the seminars at Ruth Chris?
Towards the end, it was Ruth Chris in Princeton. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Dang. So $50 a head.
Baller.
It's Princeton, so you're trying to get a little higher. I didn't start there. I finished there later on in the career, but there were some local restaurants I used initially in the 90s. But again, the point of it is you have to invest money to make money, right? Everybody has their process. I started as a cold caller in the day, literally as a phone book. I know you, your dad, others have talked about the generation of the 80s where you were cold calling out of a phone book with a ruler, Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith, Mr. Smith, right down the list, and making that pitch. Boiler Room doesn't lie. The movie Wall Street doesn't lie. Like, this is what we did. And eventually, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to make cold calls, right? I was a person of interest before the term, in the sense of, I'm going to do these dinner seminars. I'm going to go to a higher level. Here's this hidden lesson. One of the many times and different sessions I may have gone to over the years, award banquets or whatever, and I'm sure you've heard it, is identify your A client. Now the term is avatar, but what's your A client?
Yeah.
and replicate your A client.
That's it.
So for me in central New Jersey, where we had corporate America, Wazoo, right? J&J's worldwide headquarters, Pfizer, Merck, AT&T, Lucent, Exxon, Mobil. It was corporate America. So the millionaire next door literally resonated in every neighborhood. If you worked at a company in central New Jersey, most parts of New Jersey, but central New Jersey, where I was from, you could be there 30 years and and these were clients of mine, the local maintenance man retired with $1 million 401k.
Wow.
And he was nothing more than a maintenance man. He wasn't an executive VP. He wasn't, Johnny Got Rocks with $100 million stock option package. But so the millionaire next door existed. And so I lost my point.
You're good. That normally happens to me. What I've noticed though, that happens to a lot of big time thinkers, that are moving fast and accomplishing a lot. We just get going and like we just have a lot in our brain. We have a lot of tabs open,
Well, I'll take that excuse, but it's also going to be 58. So
there you go.
But go ahead.
Well, I mean, on this thing of selling versus solving, and what do you think was the one single thing, if you had to pick one thing that was the biggest separator, which allowed you to do $400,000 on one single case? If you had to pick one single thing, what would you pick?
As far as skill set goes, or just
anything?
Wow, that's a great question.
Let's say it's skill set.
Well, I think it goes back to a desire to want to help people. Again, I got a lot of different cards here, right? I got my someday I'll, which I'll talk about. And, when I started in the business, my dad was not necessarily a business person in the sales capacity, but, he was in leadership and management. But he said two things to me. He said, I hope someday you pay $1 million in taxes. And I said, why on earth would I want to pay $1 million in taxes? He said, because you made $2 million. That's one.
True.
The other is you can cut a person's hair many times. You can only scalp them once. Right. So you want them coming back. Right. So over my career, the industry consolidated where, not to be disparaging to the name of Merrill Lynch, but they wanted a higher ilk client.
Yep.
If you didn't have $1 million, they didn't necessarily want you as a client. And as the financial advisor, they wouldn't compensate you if you worked on a client worth less than a certain value. So it discouraged you from working with, again, 80-20. We were talking about 80-20 before, right? So 80% of your client base coming from, right? So my sweet spot was a 58 to 62-year-old getting ready to hit retirement and me helping them get to the home stretch. That's where I brought the most value to a client. Not that I don't want a 30-year-old Cody Askins who's on his way up and has some needs and
would you take me? Would you take me?
I'd consider it. I'd consider it. Can I go on the plane?
Yeah.
Rule number one: if your 30-year-old client owns a plane, the answer automatically is yes.
That's what I'm talking about.
How about that? My kid's 30. My son's 30. I hate to tell you, my son's 30. He don't own a plane.
There's a good exception to every rule,
Absolutely. That's why don't judge a book by the cover, right?
That's right.
And to go back to this $5 million guy for that $400,000 case, if you saw this guy walk in to the restaurant, overalls, I mean, he didn't have a straw in his mouth, but this guy was
might as well.
I'm not trying to be disparaging, but you would not have labeled this guy as worth $5 million. You would have been like, sit over there, be quiet, and enjoy your dinner because you're clearly not dressed for success, right? But you blow your mind when he pulled out and he said, I'd like to talk to you, and here's what you got. So you can't, Cody, right? Millionaire next door, you can't.
But a lot of people do that. I mean, I used to do it. Like as a life insurance agent, I would pull up to a trailer, and be like, oh my gosh, here we go. And I would walk out of there with like 3 policies for like $700 a month in total premium. And I'm like, well, I didn't expect that one, so you just never freaking know.
You don't know. To come back, I don't know if it's the exact point I was making before, but my most loyal clients, my most referring to me back clients were the people that started on the lower end of the investment spectrum, that I never had my nose turned up to, that I never said, hey, you don't have enough for me. If you don't have X, I can't help you. I took any client anytime, and I still to this day, you want to do $10 a month for term insurance? I'll sign you up. You want to be on the HSA, not the HSA, on the marketplace for ACA, and it's only a $50 referral fee? I'll sign you up. I will help anybody anytime, no matter their economic discrepancies. And so that always served me in the sense of, and my deliverable of what you asked earlier, what separates me, where did you get and how did you get, is to help
versus hamster.
It just, look, I was going to save some of it, but my folks divorced when I was 8. My mother died when I was 22. My mother lived on Someday Isle. So I was raised by a single mother that died when I was 22 from cancer. So my mother never got to Someday Isle. And so when you talk about your explanation of services and why you do what you do, and I had to do this deep soul searching, was I was out to help everybody realize nothing is guaranteed. You could be dead at 45. Why are you waiting? What do you need to be put in place to have your financial comfort to retire or do whatever you want to do, where work is optional, right? Yeah. And I think that foundation came from having lost a mother that never got that opportunity, right? And so at 23, starting as a young stockbroker and becoming this financial insurance, advisor, was just always, somebody needs help. Not everybody knows how to get it themselves, and we're here to help. And that's the epicenter of Weinstein Wealth Insurance Solutions. That's the epicenter of what my wife and I do with our business. And we'll help anybody, but you got to give us the opportunity, right?
That's right. I like Weinstein Wealth. That's cool. That's got a catchy, fun name. And you started stockbroker when you were 23?
1986. Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. Well, last question. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
What does this, the other part of the wristband, which is at CodyAskins.com, what does this mean to you?
Accept responsibility. That's one of my cards, actually.
Is it really?
Well, it says here. Can you read that?
What's it
point
say?
inward, not outward.
That's good. Same concept. Yeah.
Right? Is you here's the other one. Are you playing to win or are you playing not to lose? Right? How many people out there, I don't want to do blank, or I'm afraid to take this, or if I spend that money, I won't be able to whatever. And so you can't play. It goes to the seminars, right? Is you had to invest the money. Maybe you put it on a credit card. Maybe you expend money you don't have. But the results, I mean, I can't say I made 10 times my money back then, but if I spent $10,000 on a seminar back then, I got $100,000 worth of business back. No doubt about it. And eventually the business moved into a fee-based, away from commission type of relationship. So now just think about the health insurance and the Medicare that has renewal income, a fee-based advisor. Oh, I don't need a new sale. I just need to maintain my critical mass and let it grow and manage attrition and keep stacking. So any business, doesn't matter what you're in a sales role capacity, any business needs 3 to 5 years to get to critical mass.
That's right.
You're not going to make it in 6 months. You'd be a flash in the pan. I started at Merrill with no connections, no relationships, no daddy with money, no daddy with friends at the golf course. Right. And I cold call, and I've been a grinder since I'm 5 years old, right? But I started with guys that were connected. And they came out of the gates, and they were top right out of the gate. And 6 months later, I'm doing laps around them because they were done. They used the few deals they had, but I was grinding. I was cold calling, and I was getting business. And my training class at Merrill Lynch was 175 people, September 1986.
Wow.
By the end, that's 1 month. That's how many people Merrill were bringing in the doors.
Wow.
About 150 to 180 advisors nationwide a month, over 2,000. By the end of the next year, there was 10% left. 10%. So it's not a joke. They hired and trained, and they're looking for the cream to rise to the crop. And out of 90 advisors in my office, we had about 30 rookies. And again, this is 87, 88, the market crashed. I was number one in new accounts. I was number one in business. We're not talking, major money back then, but for a young person grinding from zero, I just worked my ass off and worked hard. And so the drive, the determination, the perseverance, to your point, again, coming back to some of this, is to not just not give up, but keep expanding, keep evolving, and move yourself forward, adding more and more and more. And you have to have the capacity, obviously, but if the clients are in need of it, you better know about it. And then you'll be valuable to them. And then I think one of the biggest keys to my success is that my clients come back to me knowing they need an accountant, they need an attorney, they need a guy to sell them a plane. They know I know people, right? I tied that in. You like that?
Thank you. It's good. It's good. Okay. Actual last question. Do you believe anybody can be Bruce Weinstein?
No.
Just you.
No. I'm a unicorn. No, I mean, I'm half tongue in cheek, but I've seen a lot of people come and go into business.
Yep.
And I'm seeing them today, right? I'm still seeing them. I'm still seeing them come and go, and you're dealing with a lot of them. And kudos for you for what you're doing. And look, you guys got my attention 6 months ago, and I've dove all in with you. And
how'd we get it 6 months ago? That's what I want to know.
How did I find it?
Yeah.
Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook. Probably a combination of Justin and the Gurus and Bradley and Hustlers, but I was seeing all the cross pollination of all you guys, and it led me with the Camperts to come to SWAT and to go from being out of the room to in the room to now at 8% being part of the room. And
there we go.
I hope to keep evolving that and be part of the room, and
out of the room to in the room to at the head of the head of the room.
Head of the room. I'd love to be a keynote at some point.
Oh, dude, you're on your way. That's a concept right there. Like, most people are out of the room. The winners notice they want to be in the room. Then they get in the room, and then the real winners, like the real freaking heavy hitters, they're in it, and they're like, "How do I get up on stage?"
I was VIP, right? I got in for VIP at 8%, not 8%, sorry, SWAT. And there's Pete and there's Brad. And I've been talking with Brad a little bit because I'm in the HST side for our health insurance, right?
Nice.
So he and I had some slight communication, told him I'd be there, make sure you say hi. But I went up to Pete and I shook his hand. I went up to Marlon, I shook his hand. I went up to introduce myself to everybody.
That's awesome.
And I wanted to not that I want to be known, but I want to know who's up there. And I even joked with Pete the second time I ran into him, like, I've been licensed longer than you're alive. And Pete and I we've had a one-on-one, we've had some private conversations, but I'm a sponge. I mean, I met Zig Ziglar back in the day. I've been listening to Brian Tracy and Nightingale Conan, and I've been a student of the game. And I say the game of sales and marketing, no bull selling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Books on tape, cassette, in the car. Everywhere you went. I didn't listen to music. I didn't listen to Howard Stern. It was always cassette tapes on some sales motivation and sharpen the tool, right? Sharpen the tools in the toolbox and be better.
I love that.
Am I perfect? No. Do I talk too much? Probably.
You're as close as it gets, to be a perfect.
I mean,
he can close. He's a closer.
I don't need to close. It closes itself if you do it right.
There you go. Selling or solving. Selling or solving.
You see this pen?
Sell me this pen. All right, Bruce.
Thank you, Cody.
One impressive dude, man. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm telling you guys, get to know this cat, look him up, and get to 8% and watch his breakout. See you there.